Week 3 of Season 17 in LFM is here, and we are back at Spa with both excitement and nerves. You see, the last time I was at Spa, this happened. A major accident at the top of the hill with only 2 laps to go in my first ever Pro Series race. So we were back for some redemption and hoping to see some improvements in the BMW. Now there were lots of fast drivers out for the races here at Spa, and it led to some pretty tough races, including a final race which was probably the most chaotic I have been in for some time. Let's hope we can avoid all of the drama and jump straight into race number 1.
Right, let's jump into qualifying then for race number 1. It's showing you the full lap here, 24 degrees, optimum track temperatures and conditions. We are expecting a fast one here. Now we've certainly been doing some preparation for these races this week at Spa, being in the BMW here for the very first time and picking up a few tricks from some of the faster guys as well. As you can see, I'm on TC0 as we head up El Rouge here. It's certainly been giving me a bit more rotation through El Rouge and giving me a lot of confidence in that corner. I've certainly been trying to work on the adjustment as well, because you definitely don't want to have TC0 as you come up towards Le Com here. So it's just that one corner, and a little bit later in the lap as well you see a small change also. We come through Le Com nicely there on this lap, picking up a bit of time. As you can see, I'm 4 tenths up now, going back to 3 tenths up as we head down towards Brussels. Hard on the brakes, second gear, getting the car rotated here, and on our way down to No Name. Now overall I was really happy with the pace that I had here at Spa compared to the Ferrari prior, but we had nice big grids this week on LFM for Spa. It's a track that lots of people like, it's a track that lots of people want to be fast at, and that was something I was going to experience through the races here. Coming down to the S's on this quick lap, and the timing is half decent here. I'm predicting myself into the 2-minute 17s, which is where I was hoping to be for qualifying. Coming out the other side here down to Stelvot, and as you can see I'm going to make a small adjustment here back to T0 as we come out up towards Blanchimont, just making sure the car rotates, just making sure that nothing's holding this BMW back. And in qualifying trim, that was something that was possible, and I've picked that up from some of the faster guys on LFM that you can watch on Twitch streams, etc. You can certainly learn a lot from those guys if you're paying attention. Coming down into the bus stop chicane now, and we pick up another chunk of time getting this one right. Coming out the other side there with 4 tenths up on this lap, and we're going to push through for a 2-minute 17.7 flat, which was good enough for position 12, which was a bit surprising for me, and it was my first realization that my week at Spa could be a little bit tougher than I expected. We're going to get a race start here, down to El Rouge and out the other side. I've got a bit of gap to file into there, and it is nice and clean for this race. That Porsche coming across the nose a little bit, but we get out of there nicely and down the Camel Straight for the first time in race trim. Not really sure which way to go here, left or right, so we're going to pick more of the racing line, and no one is coming up from behind. I find myself on the now inside of the BMW through the second part of Le Com, but that puts me on the outside for the latter part. And as we make our way out the other side, there's a car there that's coming back on track. I've got nowhere to go with that BMW on my inside into Brussels, so we have to file in behind, try and follow around here, and the Aston Martin, he finds his nose up the inside as well, and with good traction finds the position on me. And as we come through No Name here, falling into the line, sitting there in currently position 11, making 1 spot up through the opening sequence of this race. However, coming into Pujon here, we can see the Aston Martin running a little bit wide, trying to chase down that McLaren in front. I stick the nose in, but my traction out of Pujon's not good enough, and the Porsche behind immediately fills what turns into the inside line for the next corner here. And again, with poor traction, he's able to drive around the outside of me there. So a little bit of a silly move, trying to get down past that Aston Martin and ultimately losing out to the Porsche behind. Down into the second lap now, and contact between the cars in front in Brussels there. So we are just trying to get involved and see if we can pick up any of the pieces. There's sort of a trend this week on LFM, well, lots of little bumps and touches. Spa can be quite a hard place to pass on. You need to be showing a lot of authority when making a move. And as you can see here, as we come down to the bus stop chicane at the end of the second lap, I've got a bit of a run on this Porsche here. However, I decide to tuck in behind, but I get my braking all wrong, almost collect the back of that Porsche. A really big mistake from me, and we're just trying to creep around the tyre barrier there and get back on track without causing any dramas. But I do lose 4 positions, and it's not a really great way to start my week on LFM here. Tyre pressures are high, the nerves are high, and I'm ultimately not driving the car like I was in practice. It was a bit of a tricky situation for me. We fall in behind in P16 here on the back of this BMW. And we're doing a half decent job of staying in touch with these guys to start with, but once again we come out of the last corner. Not a great run this time around. We've got a Nissan behind who's showing a lot of pace, and we try and sneak down the inside with that BMW running a little bit wide, which ultimately turns into nothing there. But on the very next lap, I'm the one who runs wide here down into La Source, and that Nissan takes no second opportunity to go up the inside, and we're going to go side by side on the run down to El Rouge. With that Nissan got a bit more momentum, which I notice, so I back out of it a little bit to fall into line. I do not want to go side by side up El Rouge at any point this week. Not a place you want to do that, so we drop 1 more position down to P17. Down to the bus stop chicane now at the end of lap number 6, and we have the Porsche and the Aston Martin having a bit of contact through the first part of the bus stop chicane. We managed to get around both of them, and you see the Aston Martin not particularly happy with how the Porsche was trying to pass there, though he immediately gets onto pace though, and a few laps later he is now right on the back of me. I run wide through the run onto the back straight here, and the Aston Martin immediately takes the opportunity to drive around the outside there as we head up towards Blanchemont. I don't fight that one too hard. He was a much faster car. And here on the last lap, we've got a real drama with a Porsche a number of positions ahead, getting it all wrong on its way down to Stelvot. A couple of cars on the grass there into Stelvot, making a real mess of it. And as I approach the scene, all those cars are just getting going once again. We have a little run on this BMW here, but it's a little bit awkward. I get held up through the mid-corner, which means I don't get the run onto that BMW into the last corner, so I don't pick up any positions, and ultimately I've finished the race here in P16. A really messy one, and was completely sewn up by this moment here as well, making contact with this McLaren after the finish line, ruining all chances of safety rating. A slow clap for everyone as we finish off a very messy race for me. So after going back to the drawing board a little bit, we come back to Spa later in the week with a slightly different approach. This is my fast lap for qualifying for race number 2, not getting it right out of turn 1 unfortunately, a few tenths down on where I should be, but what is going right for me this race is my new livery. Thanks to Luxka, I've got myself a new white, grey, black livery for the BMW for the LFM weekly races. Looking fantastic with some inspiration from some of the WRT liveries that have started the year out, but to be clear, I'm still part of the West Competition Racing team. It's just that we will be doing their liveries for special events, Pro Series races, things like that, and hopefully getting involved with some of the bigger races with them later in the year. For the weekly races, however, I wanted to rock some of my own branding, some of my own channel partners, and I think that livery looks absolutely fantastic. So you'll be seeing plenty of that going forward in the videos. Now coming down to the bus stop chicane on this fast qualifying lap, we're getting a big gain through this last sector here, half a tenth up, dropping back a little bit, flashes of purple towards that pole position lap at the time. we go a 2 minute 18.4. Now we have fast track conditions, not optimum, so it was a half decent lap, and as you can see, those 2/10 would have put me a bit further up the grid, so it was a bit of a shame with that turn 1 mistake. But a split 2 race like the first race, because of the big numbers on LFM this week, dual card number 4, the expectations were a little bit higher, and I was certainly feeling a bit of pressure for this race. Getting down to the start line here, waiting for those green lights, and we are underway for race 2, heading on down to El Rouge, kind of on the outside here of El Rouge through the kink. But once again, a nice clean start for everyone, a little run on that Mustang behind initially, and 3 wide in front here. That middle McLaren was the pole sitter, so despite being door card number 24, he was the quickest guy in this field, kind of reverting back to how there are specialists here at Spa. Now I get swamped into Le Com for the first time, that Aston Martin pulling a really nice move around the outside of us, and we almost go 3 wide again with the pole sitter car coming back on track after a tangle in front there. Pretty chaotic first set of corners, but we come out the other side still holding on to the P6 position that we started the race in, and we make our way around to No Name. The battling behind from a few McLarens there definitely opens up a tiny bit of a gap for us. However, as we come around to end lap number 1, the pole sitter McLaren's got a really good run on me through Blanchimont here, and he is going to have a look down into the bus stop chicane. I take the inside line to this corner, and he sweeps around the outside, holding that side-by-side position, which puts me at a disadvantage for the second part of the bus stop. And he's able to get by me there, and I'm able to cover off the green McLaren behind. As we head into El Rouge for the second time in this race, I do pick up a little track cut there over the top, unfortunately, and as we exit onto the straight towards Blanchimont, I pick up a second one. So 2 little track cuts in the space of that second lap definitely meant I had to be careful with how I drove for the rest of the race. 19 minutes to go now, and we're behind the Ford Mustang here, who is currently P6, doing a half decent job at keeping behind, much quicker through the middle sector of the lap here, but on the straights he's able to pull some really nice gaps, so it'll be really hard to make a pass here. I run a little bit deep into turn 1 at the start of lap number 9, so overall this race has been a lot more consistent for me, but the Porsche there getting a really good run out of the first turn, and he's going to be all over me as we head up El Rouge here. I get up El Rouge okay myself, but that momentum of the Porsche means he's right in the slipstream there, and as we head down the Kemmel Straight now, tucked right in, I move to the inside to cover that line, so that's my one move. He takes the outside line and does a good job sweeping around the outside here. Nice and close racing, no contact though, and as we come out of Le Com here, I'm not close enough to consider diving up the inside for that last part of Le Com, so he takes away that position, a little bit frustrated, and immediately the BMW behind door card number 3, he is directly onto me, so the pressure does not let up now with 5 minutes left of this race. 1 lap later in the same location into Le Com, the BMW has a bit of a look but isn't quite far enough alongside. And as we come down to that corner once again on what is the last lap of the race, he's having another good look and he chucks it up the inside this time. Again, not close enough to have a good look. I'm a little bit long through Le Com here, so he's still really close to me. Not a great exit as well, so there's lots of pressure. He's right on the rear bumper there. As we come down to Brussels, unfortunately, I outbrake myself a little bit, and he is able then to tuck it up the inside into Brussels. And as we come down to No Name side by side, I try my best to hold on to position here, but he's got the drive around the outside there, picking up that P8 position from me. Immediately as well, another BMW, he is having a look around the outside at Pohorn. Very hard corner to do that on, and I try and run him as wide as possible onto the outside there, and able to tuck in front. As we come down to the S's, he has a little dive up the inside, but it's again not authoritative enough for me to be concerned. I take the apex as I should, and we come out of there with a good drive to open up a little bit of a gap. Fortunately, as we come through Blanchimont, I do hear that the leader has just finished the race, which is great for me. The bleeding can stop. We just need to get this last corner right. And as you can see with the train of cars that were behind me, it was certainly on for one mistake, costing me big time. So happy to not have to do an extra lap. And we can come across the line there, holding on to that top 10 finish. Again, a bit disappointed with the result and the performance, but a top 10 nonetheless. Now, unfortunately, things were not going to get any easier for me. 29-degree track temperatures and split one race for me this time around. We are coming through the bus stop chicane for the time of my fast lap, and I make a big improvement on this one, and we're going to get across the line for a 2-minute 18.28, which is good enough to start out of P17. Now, this is probably one of the most chaotic races that I've been a part of from some time. Starting out of that P17 position, we get the green light and we're immediately looking at the black Porsche and blue Aston Martin who are going to the apex at El Rouge. There's a little touch, the Aston Martin gets all out of shape, and he's very fortunate as we get over the top of El Rouge to appear on the track still. That could have very easily ended our race straight away. We come down the Kemmel straight. The Audi's had a good run on me around the outside there, and he moves across to cover the inside line down into Le Com for the first time in this race. Around the outside, I've got the black Porsche there, but he immediately takes a bump from the Audi and spins into the infield, and we are able to claim that position back. Doesn't end there though, with immediate drama for a couple of cars coming out of the last part of Le Com. 3 positions there are gained through that particular section, and as we come down to Brussels for the first time in this race, I found myself at a net gain of 2 positions sitting there in P15. Coming through No Name for the first time to settle in to this race and see what else will unfold. Halfway through the second lap, and I'm quickly finding a groove in this race, much quicker than the prior races. I'm able to hang on to the cars that are in front of me, and the back of the top 10 is only just up the road. Start of lap number 3, we have a spun Lamborghini on the outside of turn number 1, which was easily avoided, moving us up to position 14. And at the same lap as we come through Le Com, you can see a contact there with a couple of cars. So there's going to be a lot of this sort of thing going on in the race. I'm going to need to do my best to try and avoid it. End of lap 3, we've got door card number 7 Ferrari around the outside at the first part of the bus stop chicane. He does enough to hold on to what ends up being the inside, and I've really got to find a way of defending this particular move. It's happened to me a few times this week, and I've never been able to come out of it well. We come down to La Source. I'm trying to get this position back, but I completely outbrake myself and slide through that gap in front of me, fortunately not taking out any other cars. Coming back on track here, there's a Porsche now on my inside, and we ease off to fall into the line there. The red Mustang behind putting a lot of pressure on as well. As we come down to Brussels on that lap, he throws it up the inside here. We give just enough space, and we're going to go side by side as we come down towards No Name. And then he pulls a really nice crisscross move around me here, immediately getting onto the power and pulling up along the inside as we come down towards Pouhon. Now, the plus side of the BMW is it's much more stable around this corner versus the Ferrari, so I do feel like I can actually fight in this position around the outside, where the Ferrari was much looser in the rear, and I'd usually spin out in that circumstance, but it's not enough, unfortunately, to keep the Mustang behind at this time. And the white BMW, he's immediately there to look now around the outside of the final chicane on that lap. So a very eventful lap number 4 for me, with lots of passing happening to me. And we're going to come out of the other side here with a McLaren on the outside now as we head up towards turn 1, because lap number 5 is not going to be any better. We get a bit of a crisscross from the McLaren behind, and there we are side by side on the run down to El Rouge on this particular lap. I'm trying to put some authority on him by squeezing him across to the wall while giving some space, and there's a little touch as we turn in towards El Rouge. He's flashing the lights. He thinks he has been squeezed a little bit too much, and as we can see on the replay here, I've certainly moved across, but I feel like there was enough space, just a small touch, but it does put me all out of shape up El Rouge, and then immediately gives him a run down the Kemmel Straight. There's a silver Aston Martin trying to get involved in this as well, and I'm certainly bleeding a lot of positions over this last lap and a half. McLaren, he finishes off that move, and now I'm side by side into Le Combe with the silver Aston Martin. Fortunately, putting enough authority around the outside through the last part of Le Combe, traction on the outside of the circuit there, and I'm able to hold on to that position going into Brussels. Now the next lap in front of us, we have the black Ferrari here, door cut number 12, a big moment out of El Rouge. He slowed down the Kemmel straight, and that's where we get to meet him here, nearing the end of the straight. Looking for a move around the outside, but decide to brake early, giving everyone some space, but his overheated tyres from the spin put him into a slide into the infield there, and I'm able to push around to pick up one position up to position 18. More drama into Brussels for this lap number 6. This McLaren here on the inside of the track begins to drive out into the circuit, and he's very lucky to not be the bowling ball onto all of the pins behind. Very, very dangerous coming back onto track there. Fortunately, no one else involved in that one. And then for a few laps, I actually get some peace and quiet, but that all stops at the start of lap number 8. 2 cars off into the middle of turn 1. I go around the outside, and as you can hear, there is a car on my outside, however my radar does not show anything. Sure enough, on the replay you can see the black Ferrari going through the middle of that accident, and he's very much to my right. I give him lots and lots of space, and then I eventually hear clear on the right as he backs out of that going into El Rouge, and we managed to get out of that one unscathed. A bit of a glitch in the game there to not show it on the radar, but no harm done. For a few more laps as well, I get to put a nice little gap to that Ferrari behind and just carry on with my own race, which is really the first time in this race that I've had any track space to myself. However, start of lap number 10 through Le Combe, there's some position changes in front, and that battle begins to come back to me. Currently P14, so we're looking at that P10 position at the front of this queue, and I get to put a little half move on this silver McLaren going into the final corner. It was a little bit clumsy, and as a result the black Ferrari behind immediately evaporates the advantage that I had over him. So we're going to go into this final lap of the race with some pressure on, hoping to hold on to this P14 position. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit cautious into turn 1, and the aggressiveness of the Ferrari, he dives up the inside there. We make a bit of contact with the Lamborghini, who's also trying to get a position down the inside there, and once again I'm going side by side with the car down towards El Rouge. Now the Lamborghini backs out of it fortunately, so we get a nice clean run, and then I follow this Ferrari over the top of El Rouge, picking up track cuts here on the last lap. A good run though, so we're going to keep in the slipstream here, and as we pull out, he actually makes it really easy for me, potentially feeling like he dive bombed me a little bit into turn 1, although I take a shared responsibility in that, of course. Sadly, his friendliness is not received by any of the other competitors, and this Lamborghini is down the inside, accidentally spins him out at the start of Le Combe on the last lap. And what that does for me, however, is open up a nice little advantage to very safely and calmly get through this last part of the lap and finish off this race. Overall, I wasn't particularly happy with all of my racing here at Spa this week. It was a shame to not be able to produce some of the qualifying times that I had hoped for due to some of the track conditions that we got, and overall my racing was not as strong as I had hoped. Potentially the BMW isn't the strongest car around here, but I did feel like I was going to be able to compete a bit more than I did. Back to the drawing board a little bit at Spa, and I'm hoping to unlock some extra pace in some future races. Nice to finish off this one in position 14 for some elo, but as I said, overall not particularly happy with how things turned out.
So those are my Spa races this week on LFM, and as I alluded to, I wasn't particularly happy with how everything went. Now in reflection, there were definitely positives to take away. My pace was not bad, neither was my qualifying pace either. I just had hoped for some more improvements over what I did show. It was nice to keep the car clean and avoid any major incidents, including not crashing or spinning myself during those races. In the end, the elo did go up, as well as holding on to some safety rating, and it was some very fun racing despite it happening more to me rather than dishing it out myself. Lots of good lessons were learned for these races, and Spa is just one of those tracks that you need to have really good pace to be competitive at. as is its popularity with other drivers. We'll continue to work on it in the BMW, and I'm sure there's some more pace to find. And fortunately, we have Bathurst next week on LFM to sink the teeth into and hope for some good results once again. As always, I'd love to hear your feedback on how you think my week's racing has gone, and I'd love to hear also how your races at Spa went as well. I know there can be a lot of drama here at the circuit. Thank you very much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you're loving content like this. There's more LFM races to show you very soon. And a final shout out to my friend Luska for the new livery. It's looking fantastic out on track, and I'm looking forward to showing you more of that one. If you want your own livery from him, get in touch on Discord. All of the information is in the description below. As always, race hard, stay positive. Thanks for watching. Cheers.